Hello, and welcome back to yet another NFL video. I switched the setup, man. As you can see behind me, we're in the basement now. So let me know what y'all think about the new setup in the comments. Today we got the final NFL team review, and if you couldn't guess, it might be the Seahawks. I'm a Seahawks fan, so there will be a little bit, just a tiny bit of bias and cope involved within this video. But yeah, man, final team preview. Taking a look at my Seattle Seahawks. Let's get right into it, man. But firstly, thank you for watching. Let's hop right into this right here. All right, so taking a look at what the Seahawks have been really, we got to go back a while. I think this video should start off with the Russell Wilson trade. What were my thoughts on Russell Wilson? I appreciate what Russell Wilson was for the Seahawks for a very long time. He was a Hall of Fame caliber player. He was an amazing regular season player, but I don't know what happened. I maybe he just got too comfortable, or Pete Carroll got a little too comfortable with him, maybe because the last year and a half, if you remember, I believe it was 2020, Russ came out on fire. He was the clear MVP for the first, I don't know, 2 months of the season. And then after that, at the halfway point, he just completely fell apart. I don't know what happened. We as a team got significantly worse. We ended up losing in the wild card round, I think, to the Rams. Like the Jared Goff, Jared Goff wasn't even playing. It was the Rams' backup quarterback beat us in Seattle. That's when I knew things had to change. It was over at that point in time. I wanted Russ gone, point blank. It had just we hadn't won a playoff game in so long. It felt like, even though I think we won one the year before, but it was like it just they felt like we were going nowhere, even though we were consistently a pretty good team year in and year out. And we still have been. But then 2021, Russ got hurt. It was our first time missing the playoffs in like a decade or whatever. But Geno Smith stepped in for a very small amount of time, but he looked good in that time that he stepped in for Russell Wilson. That offseason, of course, I think Russ demands a trade or whatever. We trade him to the Broncos, absolutely fleece the Denver Broncos in that Russell Wilson trade, and the new era begins. So in 2022, people predict the Seahawks to be one of, if not the worst teams in football. And I believed it. I did not expect anything substantial out of my Seahawks. With that being said, we ended up winning 9 games. It was a masterclass from Pete Carroll. He got the absolute most out of that roster, which had a lot of young players, not a lot of guys who were, proven in the NFL. Geno Smith, for the first time in like over a decade, I think, was a starting NFL quarterback, and he balled out. Geno Smith was undeniably a top 6 or 7 quarterback in the 2022 season. He was deserving of a Pro Bowl. He led the NFL in completion percentage. He was amazing. He was amazing in 2022. Led us to the playoffs, where we, of course, lost to the 49ers, who are a very, very good team. That leads us into 2023. And you can imagine all the momentum and hype that as a Seahawks fan I felt. I'm like, man, the roster was this bad, and we won 9 games, made it to the playoffs. I was expecting a big jump in 2023. I was expecting us to be a dark horse Super Bowl contender. Those dreams got shattered fairly quickly. We lost in week 1 in a blowout fashion at home to the Rams. I fucking hate the Rams. Um, and for some reason, the offense just did not look the same at all as the year before. You can attribute that to a lot of injuries on the offensive line. We went from a really young talented offensive line to just a really injured bad offensive line. Um, Defensively, we took massive steps back. I did not like how we played at all defensively, even though some new talent emerged. Devon Witherspoon, guys like that. I just felt like we had gotten worse defensively and offensively. With that being said, we still managed to win 9 games, but we were terrible in the red zone. We could not score touchdowns when we needed to. It was a very disappointing season, and I think justifiably we parted ways with Pete Carroll. It was hard to do. It felt terrible, but at this point in time, I think everybody could see what's the phrase? The writing was on the wall. He's been here for like over 12 years, I think. So I mean, it was just time to move on. He's an accomplished. He'll be in the Pro Football Hall of Fame, I think. But yeah, Pete Carroll, I think he had got the most that he could out of this team. And same for Pete Carroll. I don't think he was getting any better, and I don't think the team was getting any better under Pete Carroll. With that being said, this offseason, we get to the current point in time. We bring in Mike McDonald, former defensive coordinator from the Ravens, arguably the best defensive coordinator in the NFL last season. The Ravens defense was absolutely elite. We bring him in to address what should be a lot of our defensive concerns, and we bring in an offensive coordinator, Mike Grubb, I believe, from Washington. He was Washington's offensive coordinator, and as we all know, they were an electric, ecstatic, explosive offense last year in college football. Also, he stays in Washington now, going from Seattle to Seattle. So, yeah, I love the coaching changes, personnel changes. There have been some. I think the offense remains relatively identical. To be honest with you, there were some moves made on defense. We got rid of some long-time Seahawks in the process, which I'm not too mad about. And it's kind of a new look team with higher expectations. If you ask me, I would say absolutely we should win 10 or more games next year, even though our division is incredibly competitive. The NFC is incredibly competitive. I think that we could and should win 10 or more games next year and just make some noise in the NFC. So here's what we looked like last season. As you can see, we were bad in a lot of places, especially defensively. It's not unfair to call the Seahawks a bottom five defense last season. Um, the only thing that we were not bottom 12 in were sacks per game, which is a pretty good thing to be high up in. You know, we got a lot of pressure last season, which I like a lot. But besides that, man, there's just not a lot to write home about. We could not stop the run. We just absolutely we absolutely could not stop anybody's run game. We were 30th in yards allowed. And offensively, we might have had the worst combination of offensive run game and defensive run stoppage, which is crazy to think about offensively because we have Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet. Like how can you have those two guys and not be able to run the football? That's kind of the the nail in the coffin for our former offensive coordinator Shane Waldron. We did not turn the ball over a lot, contribute that to guys like Geno Smith still not being bad. He made the Pro Bowl last year, even though his numbers took a significant drop off. I really don't blame Geno Smith for what went wrong last season. The only thing I kind of hold him accountable for is not being good in the red zone, but how much of that is play calling at the end of the day? I saw how good Geno Smith could be. I saw how bad the offense was as a whole last year. I'm still reserving my opinion on Geno moving forward. But honestly, guys, if I'm being real here, it is perfectly reasonable to expect the Seahawks to get better offensively and defensively, probably across the board, except for maybe turnovers offensively. Like it's tough to remain that low back-to-back years, but I could see us improving across the board everywhere else. So that's very exciting to think about. Following that, here is the new look depth chart. I'll go through the guys coming back. The entire wide receiver core, including our tight end returns. Actually, our entire receiving core, plus tight end, plus our top two running backs, plus our quarterback returns. Off the top of my head, I don't know a single other team that can say that. That is incredible talent retention by the Seahawks this offseason. I mean, all you really had to do was not trade Lockett. I mean, so what do we know? Let's start with the receiver core. I think most people realize that this is a top three to top five receiving core in the entire NFL. DK has been a perennial Pro Bowler, incredibly talented. Tyler Lockett, consistently one of the most underrated players in the league, one of the best deep threats, one of the best body control receivers, amazing toe tap catches in the end zone. Lockett is a consistent Seahawks Ring of Honor, great receiver. And JSN, I'll be honest, statistically, he didn't have that impressive of a rookie season, I don't think. With that being said, he had a bunch of moments that make people realize, like, okay, he's going to be a good player in Seattle for a long time. And the more I think about it, I just love that pick, man. We really got Jackson Smith and Jigba in last year's draft. Like, that's just such a shocker. I mean, like, nobody was expecting that, but I'm just so happy that that was like Pete Carroll's last first round pick. Ah, man, that kind of makes me sad in a way, but it was a good pick, Pete. You did good. The offensive line, this is something that's gone through a lot of changes. It's going to continue to go through a lot of changes. So Abraham Lucas, you can see right there, he was a very good rookie right tackle for us in 2022, got hurt last year, and he starts this season on the PUP list. I believe that means he will miss at least the first 4 games. So the offensive line, it's going to be Charles Cross, let me just break down every single player here. Well, I will in a little bit. Charles Cross, Laken Tomlinson, Connor Williams, Anthony Bradford, and who starts at tackle? Is it Stone Forsyth or George Fant? I'm not sure. That right tackle spot definitely concerns me. But in a perfect world, once Abraham Lucas comes back, it'll be Cross, Tomlinson, Williams, Bradford, and then Abraham Lucas. Noah Fant, former first round pick by the Broncos. We got him in the Russell Wilson trade. He has not kind of taken off or lived up to his first round potential, I guess you could say. Um, we bring him back from this offseason, I think. It's, he's just, there's too many other weapons in this offense, and we're not that explosive of a, like, Geno's not a guy who's going to throw for 4,500, 5,000 yards, right? So I don't think Noah Fant's going to be 1,000 yard, 900, 800 yard receiving tight end with the Seahawks, but he can still be a very good, productive role player. And so that's my hope for Noah Fant moving forward. And then our running back duo, I already mentioned it. We have one of the deepest running back rooms in the NFL. We just had to cut one of the best preseason running backs in George Holani because we got Kenneth Walker, Zach Charbonnet, and Kenny McIntosh. Obviously, I love Kenneth Walker. He's been a monster his first 2 years. Only thing is, I want him to get more touches. Like that's literally it. That's my only criticism of Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet. I love that we picked him up last season or 2 years ago, I should say. No, yeah, he was last draft. I love the fact that we picked him up. He was one of my favorite running backs going into the draft. And I love the way he plays. And he had a really impressive rookie year statistically as an RB2. So I love this 1-2 combination. I just want to see more of that. There's no way with these two guys, we should be the 28th best run offense. Defensively, this is where we see a lot of changes. Jarran Reed, he returned last year for his first season back. He started his career with us. He came back last year and was a very good contributor for us. Jonathan Hankins, Leonard Williams. I think Byron Murphy is going to end up being the starting defensive tackle alongside Big Cat Leonard Williams. We made a midseason trade for him. He played very well for us. I think he could be one of, if not our best defensive players next season. I'm excited to see how he works with the rookie Byron Murphy. Jermont Jones, we got him, I think, from the Russell Wilson trade. Kind of a disappointing year one with us last year. I hope now that we have Mike McDonald, he can use Jermont Jones a little more better to his skill set, because I really think our front seven, or at least our defensive line and pass rush, I like the talent we have there. Boye Mafe, I don't know why he doesn't have Boye Mafe listed as a starter here. Boye Mafe led the team in sacks last year. He had like 9.5 sacks. He had a breakout year. Year two player, second round pick, formerly of Minnesota. Boye Mafe is the guy who has star edge rush potential on this team. I love the fact that Mike McDonald gets to work with him. I think Boye Mafe could potentially have a star caliber breakout season this year with the Seahawks. Keep an eye on him. I am very excited to see how he performs this season. Now, we notably lose guys like Bobby Wagner. We bring in two new starting linebackers, Jerome Baker and Tyrell Dodson. Jerome Baker is kind of a proven guy. We kind of just basically traded him for Jordan Brooks to Miami. He is kind of a proven guy. I have no doubt that he'll be a good player, a good starter for us. Pretty much on the same level of a guy like Jordan Brooks. Then you got Tyrell Dodson. He was the highest rated PFF stand-up linebacker last year. Take that for what you will. Maybe you don't care about PFF. I really don't. But I mean, to be our second best linebacker, I guess I'm okay with that. We drafted Tyrese Knight in the draft. Maybe he'll play a little bit this season. Uchenna Nwosu, he got hurt in the last preseason game. He'll miss at least the first 2 weeks, I think. Hopefully he'll be back for like week 3, week 4. He had 9.5 sacks 2 years ago. So you would, in a perfect world, you would think that Uchenna healthy, Boye Mafe healthy could really wreak some havoc off the edge. And I would like to hope that that happens at some point this season. Derek Hall, second round pick from us last year. I think he developed a little bit. You saw him make some plays in preseason. He's just another good weapon. I mean, if you just look at our pass rushers this season, Jarran Reed, Leonard Williams, Byron Murphy, Jermont Jones, Uchenna Nwosu, Boye Mafe, Derek Hall, Jerome Baker coming in as a linebacker blitz. I think Mike McDonald has a lot to work with. The Witherspoon coming, he had 3 sacks last year. Mike McDonald has a lot to work with for the guy who led he had the defense that led the league in sacks last year. I would not be shocked at all if we get 50 plus sacks next year, because I think we have the talent to do so. Now getting into the secondary, there's been a lot of changes here as well. We got 3 new starters, and if you look at week 1 last year, but really 2 new starters through the offseason. Okay, let's talk about the guys that stayed there. Our Pro Bowl cornerback duo, my favorite part of the defense, Tariq Woolen, Devon Witherspoon. Both guys who are in rookie contracts. Tariq Woolen was the best cornerback in football his rookie year. That is not debatable. I will bring up the stats and debate it with anybody. He led the entire NFL in takeaways, and he was incredibly good in coverage as a fifth round pick rookie. Tariq Woolen was the best cornerback in football in 2022. Devon Witherspoon was a Pro Bowler as a rookie. He literally just lit up the stat sheet. He got 3 sacks, a touchdown, forced fumbles, 15 plus pass breakups, very good in coverage. I mean, that is the star duo in this secondary. Tariq Woolen was very good last year. He was just underrated because people think he fell off, but he was very good last year. Devon Witherspoon, I love that duo, that combination, and I'm sure Mike McDonald does too. The safeties, Julian Love, we brought him in from the Giants midseason, I believe. I think we got him and Leonard Williams. Julian Love, he kind of comes in, he replaces Quadre Diggs. Diggs was there for a while, made a few Pro Bowls. Julian Love, I think, is an upgrade. I think he played very well in spots last season. I think he is my favorite safety that we currently have on the team. I love him playing in the nickel. I think he makes a lot of plays, and I think he makes the right play the majority of the time. So I like Julian Love a lot. Rayshawn Jenkins, we bring him in from Jacksonville. Not a lot to say about him. I think he's a good tackler. I think he helps run defense a little bit. Not the best in coverage, but I think Rayshawn Jenkins will be the fifth best DB on this team. And if Rayshawn Jenkins is your fifth best DB, I think you got a pretty good secondary. So I'm not mad at Rayshawn Jenkins starting. We got Kobe Bryant back there in case we need to make a change. Trey Brown, he is our new starting cornerback. We traded Mike Jackson. I hope we traded Mike Jackson because Trey Brown proved himself in training camp and preseason. Trey Brown, he's been on this team for a while. I think he's a former fourth-round pick. He's played in spots, but I've never really been too impressed. This is now going to be his chance. He's a little undersized. I think he's like 5'8", 5'9", 5'10", something like that. So this is his chance now to start and prove himself as a boundary NFL corner. I'm concerned. I think if I had to pick a guy who's going to give up the most big plays, I think it'll be Trey Brown. But I'm hoping he'll have a breakout year. I'm hoping he'll prove himself because this is his chance. If he doesn't, prove himself this year, he's probably done with the Seahawks. So a lot of pressure on Trey Brown. Moving on. That's the roster pretty much. Let's take a more in-depth look at what the offense did. Like I said, man, Geno, down year compared to 2022, but I don't think it was bad. Like only 9 picks, close to 4,000. He missed 2 games, by the way. He missed 2 games. Close to 4,000 yards. Really missed like 2.5 because he got ejected in the Giants game. So 3,800 yards, 21 touchdowns. I mean, that's not a bad year at all. He missed some time. Kenneth Walker, Zach Charbonnet. Yeah, they just need more touches. Kenneth needs to be well over 275. Charbonnet needs to be over 160 next year. Please, please, Ryan Grubb, pound the football, and I'm confident that he does know how to do that. Noah Fant, like I said, he's a good role player. Then you got the trio of wide receivers, which I think are going to continue to be the focal point of this offense, should be the focal point of this offense, especially considering Ryan Grubb, what he has had at receiver the last 2 years at Washington. I'm sure he loves going to an NFL team that already has a stable of 3 crazy. And the player builds, if you like, this is kind of weird to think about. If you just think about what Ryan Grubb had at Washington and what we have now at Seattle, you have DK Metcalf, the typical Romo Dunze player build, right? You have Tyler Lockett as the Jalen Polk, if you will, the big play guy down the field. And you have JSN as the Jalen McMillan. Like, it's kind of weird how similar our receiver core is to what Mike McDonald or Ryan Grubb had at Washington the last couple of years. So I hope that he's going to come in and be a star coordinator for us. I pray, man. Offensive line, I did not talk about them as much earlier. Charles Cross, former top 10 pick, was solid as a rookie, got better as a sophomore. I'm hoping that year 3 is the breakout year because don't get me wrong, he's not bad. If he's just as good as he was last year, if he's just that good his whole career, he'll be a okay NFL tackle. But obviously, you want a top 10 pick to be better than okay. I think he will continue to improve, and I'm thinking that if he just takes marginal steps this year, then he will be a good NFL tackle, and I'm waiting for that. Laken Tomlinson, he comes in from the Jets. And look, he wasn't good last year, but this is my theory. I believe that anybody that plays offensive line for the Jets becomes terrible, just based off the talent around you. So I'm going to bet that Laken Tomlinson is not as bad this year as he was last year on the Jets. And in 2022, I checked his stats. He was much better than this in 2022. So for some reason, 2023, he took a big step back. I'm hoping that he rebounds in Seattle. Connor Williams, this was an offseason addition for us. I did not fucking realize how good Connor Williams was in limited time. He only played about 500 snaps. That's like half a season. He only played 500 snaps. He was amazing for the Dolphins last year. That is like the highest rating. That might be the highest PFF rating I have seen for a center in all of these videos that we've done so far. That is an amazing addition for the Seahawks at center. Anthony Bradford, he was like a fourth, fifth round pick last year for us out of LSU, or 2 years ago, I should say. He didn't play great as a rookie, but you know, uh, if my hope, right, is that Anthony Bradford is the fifth best or lineman on this team, and same thing with Rayshawn Jenkins. If Anthony Bradford's the fifth best lineman, and you hope he gets better, right? You would hope year one to year two he takes a big jump. I don't have a problem with that. Abraham Lucas, like I said, going to start the year on the PUP list. He got hurt last year. He played hurt, but he had a bad year. You really hope that once he comes back, he is going to look more like 2022 Abraham Lucas, who was a very good starting tackle for a rookie. So that's the offensive line. On to the defense, like I mentioned earlier, some of our guys up front, I like them a lot. Uchenna, that's his 2022 season when he was healthy. Jerron Reed, Leonard Williams, Boye Mafe. These four guys really should be able to wreak havoc. I mean, with Mike McDonald in there, and then you got the Byron Murphys and the Derek Halls and the Dramont Joneses. Like we got a lot of guys who can wreak havoc in this front seven. And then the back end, like I said, Tariq Woolen, Devon Witherspoon, both good players, both had good years last year. Witherspoon was better, but that does not stop the fact that Tariq Woolen is one of the best, most freakish boundary corners in football. Julian Love, like what he did for us last season, and then Rayshawn Jenkins, the new addition. Is this right? There's no way he had 6 picks last year. Yeah, those stats might be. Yeah, he didn't have 6 picks last year. Those stats are a little off, but yeah, uh, I like Rayshawn Jenkins, nonetheless. Moving on. So this is what we looked like last season. So as you can see, like I mentioned earlier, we got embarrassed by the Rams in week 1. Then we were pretty good. We were pretty good for the next 2 months of the season. The Bengals loss was heartbreaking. We could not score in the red zone like 5 times that game. The Ravens loss was embarrassing. And then the wheels kind of fell off. Gino got hurt in the middle of this stretch, I think, or was it the end of this? It was the end of this stretch, maybe. We played some good teams: Rams, Niners, Cowboys, Niners. That's a tough 4-game stretch, especially with 3 of them on the road. We lost all 4 of those games, and the season was pretty much over at that point. But we rallied at the end. We still pulled together a winning season out of our hat for Pete's last year, but we just could not. Look at all of our losses. I think all of our losses came to playoff teams, right? I don't think the Bengals made the playoffs, but that was when they had Joe Burrow at least. So I mean, all of our losses, most of them were on the road, and all of them were to good teams. So we took care of business, you could say. We took care of business against the bad teams, but we could not really pull off that many big wins. The Lions win was huge. We owned the Lions, by the way, in Detroit. And then the Eagles win was really good as well. So yeah, I mean, but it was a lot of disappointing games last year for sure. Now let's take a look at my favorite part of these videos, predicting what these teams are going to look like next season. Let's get into it. Firstly, I think the Seahawks are going to start off on fire next season. We play 2 of the worst teams in the league to open the season, the Broncos and the Patriots. You have to win those games. You cannot afford to lose your first 2 games to Bo Nix and Jacoby Brissett. Mike McDonald has to make something work. We have to win both of these games, and I think we will. So we're going to start the season off 2-0, I believe. Then you get the Dolphins at home in week 3. If this was in Miami, I'd probably say we lose this game, but it's going to be in Seattle. I think the Dolphins defense has made a lot of changes, like a lot of changes. They got rid of Xavier Howard, the defensive tackle, I forget his name, the stud defensive tackle that went to the Raiders. They lost a couple big players. So I think their defense is going to be a little susceptible. I think our offense will figure it out by week 3, and I think we're gonna put a beating on the Dolphins. Offense, I think this would be a really good game. By the way, I would like to go to this game, but really exciting game. I think the Seahawks beat the Dolphins. I think we're a slightly better team. I think we win that in week 3, and we improve to 3-0. Now this is where things get a little bit choppy. I have us losing to the Lions in week 4. Listen, we have beat the Lions in Detroit the last 2 years in a row. Why the fuck Do the Seahawks have to play the Lions in Detroit every year? How does that happen? What schedule maker hates the Seahawks that we have to play in Detroit 3 years in a row? I've never seen that before. What the fuck is this? We've played the Lions in Detroit 3 years in a row. We're not going to beat them every year. So I have us losing to the Lions. Let me calm down. I have us losing to the Lions in week 4 because we can't beat them every fucking year in Detroit. So I think we start off 3-1. But then I think we win 3 more. I think we play the Giants at home. That should be a gimme. No disrespect. A little bit of disrespect. Then we play 2 tough games, but I think we win them both. The Niners at home. Listen, the 49ers have beat us. I don't. Is it like 3, 4, maybe 5 games in a row? I do not think the Niners are going to beat us twice in the regular season. I just don't think it's going to happen. I think we are a better team now. I think the Niners got a little bit worse. So I think we're going to beat the Niners. And if we beat the Niners, you would expect it to be at home, right? I think that's more reasonable to expect us to beat the Niners at home. So I have us beating the 49ers at home 24-23. Then we go on the road to play the Falcons. This is a very tough swing game. You could absolutely 100% convince me that we are going to lose this game. I would not argue with it at all. But for some reason, I don't know why. But I think we beat the Falcons. I think we beat the Falcons in whatever week 8, week 9. I think I'm gonna be at this game. So I think me being at this game will motivate the Seahawks to get the job done, and I think they're going to beat the Falcons to improve to 6-1. Now this is where the wheels kind of fall off here. We lose 3 in a row. We lose 3 in a row to 3 good teams. Now you could probably convince me that we're going to lose to the Falcons, beat the Bills at home. I wouldn't be mad at that at all, but Bills, Rams, Niners, that's a tough stretch, man. Niners at home, or on the road, I should say. We're definitely losing that one. Rams have just had our number last year. I don't know how, but I think we lose to the Rams at least once next season. I think it could be right here. The Bills got worse. We got better. But I think the Bills are still going to provide us. I just think the Bills game is going to be one where our offense just shits the bed. I don't know why the Bills don't have a great defense, but I see a world where we cannot move the ball against the Bills for some reason. So we now drop from 6-1 to 6-4. We kind of rebound a little bit with games like with 2 games against the Cardinals. Thankfully, the Cardinals, the punching bag of the NFC West, we rebound with them. The Jets, though, Jets on the road, that's a tough place to play, man. That's a tough place to play. That's a tough defense to play. They have a good offense now. I do not think a lot of people are going to beat the Jets in New York next year. So we dropped to, what is that, 7-5. Then we beat the Cardinals again, improved to 8-5. And then what's our finishing stretch here? Packers, Vikings, Bears, Rams. I think we can go 3-1. The Vikings and the Bears don't scare me. We already know the offensive coordinator. The Bears offensive coordinator was our offensive coordinator. That doesn't scare me. I think the Vikings and Bears are pretty much gimmies. The Packers game, the Packers are a good team. I have a lot of faith in the Packers. I think the Packers beat us even though we're at home. And the Rams game, similar to the Niners game. I just don't think the Rams beat us back-to-back. I don't think they sweep us back-to-back years, especially when we're not a bad team. So I think we beat the Rams at least once next year. I think it could be at the very last game. This could be a game to make the playoffs or whatever. For maybe even could win the NFC West. Who knows? So that's how I have us looking. What is that? 11-1, or sorry, not 11-1. 11-6 next year. Lose to some good teams. Beat a few good teams. We have a tough schedule, bro. Dolphins, Lions, Niners, Falcons, Bills, Rams, Niners, Jets, Packers, Rams. That's a tough schedule next year, bro. But with that being said, I think we make the playoffs at 11-6. But unfortunately, Niners beat us again. I think the Niners beat us again. Will we be at home though? Will we win the division at 11-6? I think the Seahawks, Niners, and Rams all should win at least 10 games next year. How close will it be for the division? I don't know. I think we lose to the Niners regardless whether we're at home or not, whether we win the division or not. So I don't know, man. But the Niners, I got them beating us in the wild card because I think I got the Eagles with the bye at 12-5. So 11-6, we'd have to play the wild card. And I don't think we beat the Niners, man. We definitely don't beat the Niners twice in the same season. I'll put it that way. So this is how I have our season looking. I think 11-6. I could certainly be wrong about a few of these games, like Falcons we could lose to, Bills we could beat, Packers we could beat, Rams we could lose to on the road. It's stuff like that. Like Dolphins we could lose to, Lions we could beat for the 3rd year in a row. But with that being said, I think 11 wins is reasonable. I think it's fair. 4-2 in the division. I think that is absolutely the goal that the Seahawks should aim for. 4-2, steal one off the Niners and the Rams. Do not get swept by both of them again. Please don't get swept by both of them again. But yeah, man, if that were to happen, we would look like this the last 3 years with Geno Smith, by the way. Geno Smith at quarterback, 9-8, 9-8, 11-6. I think a lot of people would open their eyes a little bit to the future in Seattle if we put a season like this together. That's going to be